Hey guys, it is Julie here with JT.Wealth. In today's video, we are chatting about the massive amount of earnings reports happening this week. So let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back and thank you so much for being here. Like I said in today's video, we are chatting about earnings reports as this is the busiest week in the third quarter earnings season. And there are nearly 900 companies reporting earnings, and that includes 170 companies that are on the S&P 500. So we are going to take a look at some of the big names that are reporting and highlight the expectations for a few, such as Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Moderna, and Shopify. Now, it'll be interesting to see the Q3 results for a lot of these companies as we're coming off of a particularly challenging Q2 for a lot of companies as everyone was trying to navigate this whole pandemic and just different ways of doing business. Now, earnings reports can be somewhat of a catalyst for these stocks, moving them in either direction. As I've said before, a good earnings report can certainly help boost that stock price. But on the other hand, sometimes that earnings report has already been priced in, or they have a great report, but their forward-looking statements aren't very inspiring. So the results of an earnings report can sometimes have a very different effect on the stock than you might think. Now, it has also been a very interesting and confusing time for the markets, and we've seen Wall Street react with stock futures tumbling and volatility charging back up. And this is in part due to an upcoming election, which always causes some volatility, but also a lot of concerns around the pandemic as some states and European countries are having to shut down again. And of course, things are still very up in the air about a pending stimulus package. So these uncertain times are causing some uncertain markets. So I share all this just to kind of, confirm with you that October has definitely been as volatile as we expected it to be. So it'll be really interesting with these earnings reports to see what future outlooks these companies have too. All right, now just before we jump into the upcoming earnings reports, this is just your friendly reminder to please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Helps us grow and helps you stay up to date with all of our latest videos. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and make sure you check out some of the great links we have down below in the description. This includes a link to my Patreon page where you can join our Discord chat group and also some referral links for new investment accounts. Webull has a great promotion on right now where you get 3 free stocks for signing up and funding your account, so check those out. Now, without further ado, here is our jam-packed earnings calendar for this week. So you can see we definitely have some pretty big names this week, especially starting on Tuesday. We have Pfizer and 3M reporting before the markets open, and after close we have Microsoft and AMD. On Wednesday we have UPS, Boeing, General Electric, MasterCard. We also have Fastly, Pinterest, Etsy, Teladoc and Livongo are a couple I'm excited for, as well as Visa. And Thursday, we have a huge day where actually most of the ones we're talking about today are happening on Thursday, and that is Shopify, Moderna, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, Alphabet, Starbucks, Heinz. Just a huge day on Thursday for earnings. And then wrapping the week up Friday with some big names like Exxon, AbbVie, Honeywell, and Chevron. So first up, let's chat about Shopify. Now, these guys' continued momentum in the e-commerce space is expected to have given them some pretty good traction in the third quarter as merchants continue to move their businesses online, and just the landscape of online shopping has been changing and growing rapidly. So they are reporting Thursday before market opens at 7 a.m. Eastern Time and are expected to come in around a 53-cent earnings per share with revenue of $636 million at a 62.9% expected revenue growth. And that overall revenue growth already soared 97% in the most recent quarter as retailers quickly shifted operations from brick and mortar to digital. So the company's firing on all cylinders as both new store signups and sales at existing stores are increasing. So what does all this mean? Well, Shopify does have $4 billion of cash and marketable securities and soaring demand for its products and services. That being said, shares of this tech stock are already up 157% year to date. Investors should be prepared for a pullback in the price if it misses analyst estimates or if management gives pessimistic guidance. If that scenario plays out, it might be an opportunity to buy a dip. Second up is Moderna. Now you might recognize this company's name as they have been in the news a good bit, as they are one of the companies that are in their third stage of trials for a certain virus vaccine. Now they are hoping to have emergency use approved by the end of the year. They are reporting on Thursday, also before open at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Expected earnings per share is a negative 43 cents, and revenue is $77.5 million. Now that is a whopping 354% expected revenue growth. But you have to keep in mind, this company has not yet successfully made a vaccine that is on the market. So although it will be interesting to see the earnings report for Moderna, obviously the bigger catalyst here is going to be them completing a successful phase 3 of their vaccine trial and continued orders from other countries once the vaccine is approved. Next up is Amazon. Now, obviously these guys have a massive presence in online retail, and their strong distribution centers and also their fast prime delivery are all expected to make a big impact on this quarter, but also their growing presence in the grocery space. So they are reporting Thursday after market closes at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Expected earnings per share is $7.27, with revenue coming in at $92.82 billion. That is a 32.6% expected revenue growth. Now, key takeaways that we'll be looking for in this Q3 report are the revenues from their e-commerce and cloud services. And investors are going to want to focus on how Amazon plans to operate in a more competitive environment online and how they're investing in capital projects and research and development as an indication of their future plans. Now, as social distancing continues and lockdowns remain in place, it's no surprise that consumer interest in e-commerce has perked up dramatically. Next up is Apple. Now these guys are expected to have a solid quarter, although I think expectations are a bit modest, and a lot of investors will actually be looking forward to the next quarter that ends in December. As for the first time ever, their iPhone launch was pushed back a month, so this quarter is not going to include any of those new sales. They are reporting on Thursday the 29th after market closes at 4:30 p.m. Earnings per share expected to be 69 cents, and revenue at $63.72 billion, which is actually a negative 0.5% revenue growth. Also coming out is Google, who has been making some strong efforts to reinforce their position in the e-commerce world. They're coming out after hours on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Earnings per share expected to be $11.34, with revenue of $35.22 billion, which is a negative 13% expected revenue growth. Now, Google did have a sell-off in September where they lost about 18% of their value in 3 weeks. They have since gained back almost 2/3 of those losses, but this trading path does set up an upside after earnings if they can deliver. Of course, what investors might be really interested in hearing is management's take on the antitrust suit that was filed last week. And part of that includes the estimated $8 to $12 billion that Apple receives in payments in exchange for building Google's search engine into its products. The alliance between the two tech giants is an example of what prosecutors said were Google's illegal tactics to protect its monopoly and choke off competition in web search. Google's payments to Apple are probably the single biggest payment that Google makes to anyone and accounts for 14 to 21% of Apple's annual profits. Nearly half of Google's search traffic now comes from Apple devices, according to the Justice Department, and the prospect of losing the Apple agreement has been described as a code red scenario inside the company. So although earnings reports might be interesting, I think it'll be more interesting to see how that antitrust situation plays out. And last but not least on our list today is Facebook, who have actually been an active buyer in their own stock, purchasing up to $1.4 billion worth of their own stock in the most recent quarter. They are reporting Thursday after hours at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Earnings per share is expected to be at $1.92, with revenue coming in at $19.64 billion, representing an 11.3% expected revenue growth. Now, their second quarter results in late July were enormously impressive and helped catalyze a rally to all-time highs for their stock. And their expectations this quarter are not particularly high, but it is worth remembering that Facebook has stumbled before, as their stock took a big tumble back in July of 2018, and higher content spending was a key cause, and it's fair to wonder whether the company's current efforts to combat misinformation and manage political commentary might not pressure margins again. Certainly, investors shouldn't expect another historic loss, but there are reasons for at least some caution towards Facebook stock this week. So those are some of the really big companies reporting this week. And of course, like I said at the beginning, there are a ton of companies reporting this week, some really great ones out there. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Which ones are you going to be watching closely? So leave that down below in the comments. You know, I always love hearing from you guys. If you made it all the way to the end of the video here, you better make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and give us a big thumbs up as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and cheers!